At 0300 hours on a Tuesday morning, the most important 21 miles of ocean on planet Earth went silent. The Strait of Hormuz, the narrow choke point through which 21 million barrels of oil pass every single day, representing 20% of the entire world's petroleum supply, had just been declared closed by the Islamic Republic of Iran. Within 4 minutes of the state television broadcast, oil futures markets in London and New York began moving. Within 11 minutes, crude had jumped $14 per barrel. Within the hour, it had crossed $91 and was still climbing. The global economy, which runs on oil the way a human body runs on blood, had just been told its main artery was being cut. The uranium plan had been assembled over 18 months in complete secrecy, drawing on every lesson the ARGC had learned from studying American naval doctrine. 3 Kilo-class submarines had been positioned on the southern approaches to the strait 2 weeks before the closure announcement, laying a field of 280 contact mines across the primary shipping lanes in water depths that made sweeping operations extremely difficult. Simultaneously, 12 mobile Silkworm and Noor anti-ship missile batteries had been moved under cover of darkness to elevated positions along the coastline overlooking both the Iranian and Omani sides of the strait. Each battery capable of engaging targets at ranges up to 120 kilometers, 10 coastal artillery batteries, each consisting of 6 155mm guns in reinforced concrete bunkers dug into the hillsides, covered the inner approaches where the waterway narrows to its most vulnerable 21-mile width. Iran had spent 18 months turning the Strait of Hormuz into a kill zone, and on this Tuesday morning they had activated every piece of it simultaneously. The first tanker to test the closure was the Maltese-flagged crude carrier MV Athena, carrying 2.1 million barrels of Saudi crude destined for South Korea at 0340 hours. 2 Iranian IRGC fast attack boats intercepted the Athena 12 miles inside the strait and ordered it to stop engines and prepare to be boarded. The Athena's captain complied immediately. The ship was escorted under armed guard to an Iranian anchorage near Bandar Abbas. Its crew of 28 sailors held as what Tehran called protective detainees. 7 more tankers turned around within the next 90 minutes as word spread across maritime communication networks. The Strait of Hormuz was closed. The world's oil supply had a problem that no financial instrument, no emergency reserve release, and no diplomatic phone call was going to solve in the next 48 hours. In the Pentagon, the lights had been on since 0315. The National Security Council convened at 0400 with the president. Joining from the Situation Room, the decision that came out of that meeting took 11 minutes to reach. Admiral Patricia Donovan aboard USS Abraham Lincoln, currently positioned 35 miles south of the strait in the Gulf of Oman. The message was 4 words followed by a grid coordinate. The words were Execute Operation Clearwater. The Lincoln's 4 accompanying destroyers, USS Stout, USS McFall, USS Farragut, and USS Forrest Sherman, immediately began repositioning to their assigned firing coordinates. In the carrier's Combat Information Center, targeting packages that had been prepared weeks earlier were loaded into Tomahawk mission computers. On the flight deck, the first FA18 Super Hornets were being armed and fueled under red-filtered lighting that kept the deck dark from above. The response had begun. The opening move belonged to the Virginia-class submarines USS Delaware and USS Vermont, already operating inside the strait on silent patrol. Both submarines had been tracking the 3 Iranian Kelo-class boats since they began their mine-laying operation 2 weeks earlier. At 0447 hours, firing orders were transmitted on the extremely low frequency band. Both American submarines fired simultaneously. 6 Mk-48 ADCAP torpedoes ran toward the 3 Iranian submarines at 55 knots through the dark water. The Kilo-class crews had no warning. All 3 submarines were destroyed within 4 minutes of the first torpedo firing. The mine threat remained. 280 mines still sat on the strait floor, but the submarines that could have laid additional mines and threatened American minesweepers were gone. At 0500 hours, 20 Tomahawk cruise missiles launched from the 4 destroyers in a ripple fire that lit the pre-dawn sky orange for 30 seconds. The missiles dropped to wave-top height and accelerated toward the Iranian coastline, following GPS-guided flight paths that had been programmed to strike each of the 10 coastal artillery batteries simultaneously. The Tomahawks arrived on target at 0512, hitting all 10 batteries within a 90-second window. Concrete bunkers collapsed. Gun barrels were torn from their mounts. Ammunition stores cooked off in massive secondary explosions that sent columns of black smoke rising from 10 separate points along the Iranian coastline, visible from the Lincoln's Bridge 35 miles away. Within minutes, FA18 Super Hornets arrived overhead and systematically destroyed the 12 mobile missile batteries with precision-guided munitions, hunting each launcher using targeting data fed from an E-2D Hawkeye orbiting at 25,000 feet above the Gulf of Oman. The kill chain that Iran had spent 18 months building had been dismantled in 22 minutes. At 0600 hours, Marine MH-60 helicopters lifted from the Lincoln's deck carrying 2 platoons of Marine raiders, assigned to secure the Iranian anchorage where the MV Athena and 6 other seized tankers were being held. The raiders fast-troped onto the docks at 0638, overwhelming the small IRGC Guard detachment in 4 minutes of close-quarters combat. All 28 crew members of the Athena were recovered unharmed. Within 90 minutes, all 7 seized tankers had been secured and their crews accounted for. The IRGC personnel who had not fled were detained and transferred to the Lincoln for processing. 5-3. Sea Dragon helicopters from the Lincoln's mine countermeasures detachment began systematic sweeping operations across the Strait's primary shipping lane, working with data from the Delaware and Vermont, which had already mapped the minefield's exact boundaries during their pre-conflict surveillance patrols. By 1400 hours, the primary shipping channel through the Strait of Hormuz had been declared safe for transit. The MV Athena, its 2.1 million barrels of Saudi crude still in its tanks, and its crew of 28 standing on the bridge watching American helicopters sweep the last section of their route, was the first vessel to transit. Oil futures, which had peaked at $94 per barrel at 0900 hours when markets opened in Europe, fell $18 in 40 minutes as the reopening was confirmed. By close of trading in New York, crude was back at $79. The world economy had stood on the edge of the abyss for 11 hours and 23 minutes. The US military had pulled it back. The Strait of Hormuz was open. It always would be.